Hey, good afternoon, Bourbon Bay. It's Steven, your host, and just coming to you on this great Monday, July 1st. And we're, a little sorry it took me a little while to get to this third video again. Basically been busy as always, like everybody. I had a promo a couple weeks ago on the 22nd, and I was at Rydom Cowboys, one of our new accounts down there at St. Petersburg on Grand Central during the Pride Fest and Parade. And yeah, it was a great time. We enjoyed ourselves. Got to talk to a lot of interesting people and build the brand awareness and talk to people about Wicked Dolphin. And yeah, we had a great time. My friend Greg, the owner, and Jeremy, the head bartender there, yeah, they did a really great job helping support the brand. And yeah, so those were definitely some of the fun things. It was definitely super hot out there that day. But hey, it's just a part of the being a sales representative and brand ambassador. You got to do what you got to do to help support the brand, build the awareness. But yeah, one of the things that I wanted to talk to you guys about today is PappyGate. I'm sure many of you have heard of PappyGate. It happened back in basically kind of started, people started to hear about it in 2013. And then we finally got the charges and everything was in 2015 when Kurt Singer, my bad, Kurt Singer, his last name, Toby. So basically he was indicted and arrested and charged with stealing over several years, basically, from what they said in the story, was that it started in 2003 as he was an employee of Buffalo Trace Distillery up there in Frankfort, Kentucky. And yeah, probably many of you heard this story, especially coming off of Netflix. It was on their TV series, The Heist, or their Netflix series, The Heist, which the last two episodes talked about PappyGate. Kind of interesting enough, even though this wasn't really considered a heist, since the definition of heist is that, when a large amount of money or valuables are stolen during a single time frame, where this was actually done during many, many years of people taking Pappy Van Winkle bottles and other barrels as well of product from Buffalo Trace, but also other distilleries. It was actually a practice that has been done by many distillery workers over a very long time, where not really the stealing part, but basically, sometimes the workers would get bottles from the distillery themselves. It's kind of like thank you gifts, or hey, a bad bottle or bad batch or something like that, something that didn't quite meet the standards of the distillery that they wanted to put out on the market. They would kind of give to their employees to, for their own personal use. So basically, as the story goes, based from the show, the Netflix, The Heist, and then also from some other source outlets like the Frankfurt's newspapers and news channels. Story goes is that Toby Kersinger was a employee at Buffalo Trace during that time. He actually handled a lot of the dock work and shipping, and so basically he was kind of in charge of this, and basically just would take product from time to time. And then he played in a softball league, and other than kind of doing some other notorious acts such as using steroids and other things, he developed some friendships with some people from his softball league, where they basically would ask people like, hey, or ask him like, hey, can you give me a bottle of Pappy? And he, at the time, he didn't know why they'd want it and what it is. And I mean, for most people, I'm sure everybody knows Pappy Van Winkle. It's a very exclusive, very rare bottle that's been produced by the Buffalo Trace Distillery for a good while now. They purchased the rights from the Pappy Van Winkle family. And hey, here's a question. If you want to stay till the end of the video, or definitely if you know the answer, put it in the comments below. But what was the distilleries of the Pappy Van Winkle family? What was the original distillery that made Pappy Van Winkle before Buffalo Trace got it in Sazerac? So yeah, if you want to write down, if you know the answer, definitely write it down in the comments. And yeah, so that way, who knows? Maybe one of these days I'll get you guys some cool stuff like a Wicked Dolphin T-shirt or something else. But we'll see. Yeah, just basically. So yeah, they were going, and he was getting bottles, and he was kind of taking them because they had the feeling that we make the product, we get we don't get to sample it because by the time it hits the market, it's super rare, it's very hard to get. And well, in my opinion, I think that bourbon should be enjoyed by everybody. That if they want to have some bourbon, it should be available. Shouldn't be costing you so much money to get a bottle just to enjoy it. But there are people out there that love to collect rare bottles of bourbon because, well, hey, it's rare and there's not many of it. But so yeah, the story goes is that these guys, with supposedly Toby Kirksinger being the ringleader, would walk out with bottles of Pappy Van Winkle. His supervisor gave him a key because he was in charge of basically disposing of product or moving product, and so the supervisor gave him a key so he could access the vaults, which was basically just a chain link fence that was in the storage area where that they could go ahead and get the bottles. And over time they took quite a few bottles, and he would give it to people for exchange for money. And I think one of the first stories from the heist was that one of his friends asked, and the guy was willing to pay $1,200 for a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle. I think it was a 15 or 20-year-old bottle. And if you guys have watched some of my previous videos, most bourbon is aged 6 years, 7 years. Doesn't go much beyond 10 years. Because sometimes the flavor can be a little bit different. But if you get to that old a bottle, because of the evaporation and the maturation of the whiskey inside the barrel, which we will definitely do an episode about maturation. It's a really cool topic. I love it. But yeah, kind of getting back, there's not a whole lot of product left in the barrel after a certain point. So it is very rare, and that's why the cost of the bottles sometimes can be really high. But yeah, so basically he started getting these bottles for his, for his friends, for his guests, and some people were like, from law enforcement, were judges, were senators, and they were getting these bottles and even getting barrels. Sometimes they would get even that risky, to where they were taking full barrels of bourbon. And it wasn't just happening at Buffalo Trace. It was happening at other distilleries like Wild Turkey, Heaven Hill, to name a few. And this happened for a long time. I mean, this wasn't just something that, happened one night, one day. No, it happened over a long period of time. And when the police started to get wind of this back in 2013, they started to look into it, and they would try and see what was going on, because the distilleries were noticing that product was going missing, the inventories weren't matching up, and yeah, so they had an investigation going on, and it took a long time because every time they thought they had a lead, it would just go nowhere. And the police, the sheriff, and I can't remember the sheriff's name at this time, but he was going for re-election, so he was making it his mission that he was going to catch the ringleader. He was going to catch this organized crime group, because that's what he thought it was. It was an organized crime that was doing this, and so he was making it his mission, especially since he was trying to get re-elected to the sheriff's office. of Frankfort County. And so basically and then it just kind of went cold for a while. And in 2015, the sheriff's deputies got a tip, and they were able to stake out Toby Kersinger's house because people started to smell. And there's a very distinctive smell, especially if you ever go anywhere near a distillery or in a distillery. You definitely smell a very distinctive smell of bourbon aging in the barrels, and it's basically a very distinctive smell that if you're in the downwind of it, you definitely can tell, hey, there's some barrels aging somewhere. And they were able to go into this piece of property that was public property right behind the Kirksingers' house, and they actually saw underneath the tarp some barrels, and they were able to get a warrant from the judge and were able to go and search his backyard. And once they found the barrels, and it was blacked out, so the maker's mark, which is what usually you'll see on a barrel that identifies, hey, this barrel comes from this distillery, this is when it was barreled, this is, the age statement, the registration, all that information, and it was blacked out with black spray paint, which is usually only two reasons that you would ever do that. Is either you were trying to change something on it or do something illegal. So once they got that information, they were able to apply for another warrant to go search his house, and that's when they found the phone. They also arrested his wife, him, and arrested his father-in-law as well. And they found the phone, they found the drug paraphernalia as well as the steroids, so they were able to get him on multiple accounts of drug trafficking, and then of course, he had all this information about who his clients were, who were the people that he sold the bottles to, sold the barrels to, collected the money from, and it was all on his phone, and that's kind of what brought him down. And that's what they made, it seemed like he was the ringleader. But there is one of the things that they talk about a little bit in the heist, but what they also talk about in some other aspects of it was that there might have been other people involved. And there might have actually been another person that was more kind of the ringleader of the whole group and not just Toby Kersinger. His wife did tell him, don't talk. We're not talking unless we have a lawyer present. But he kind of did end up telling a lot of different things. And he was going to be in jail for, I think it was like 15 years he was going to go to jail. But in the state of, or the Commonwealth of Kentucky, they have what's called shock probation, where basically they send you to jail. You're in jail. Typically, it's about a year or two. You definitely serve like, I think 18 months to 20 months of jail before. But he was given, he only served about like 30 days in prison and then was put on probation, shock probation. And, so he's kind of gone out, told the story through the heist, and has done other things. Like he was on the Bourbon Life podcast where he talked about it. Hopefully maybe one day I can get him on my podcast so we can talk about the story. But yeah, if you guys, hey, I love to hear what you guys think about the whole situation, because, this at the time was considered one of the biggest crime conspiracies of all time. And especially in the bourbon spirit world, because it was thought that, and is believed to be, that millions and millions of dollars worth of bourbon was stolen over those many years during this PappyGate, and that there's still projected that many of those bottles have not ever been recovered, and that many barrels and bottles have never been recovered, and the money hasn't been recovered. So I think there is still times where you can find one of those bottles somewhere that was from the PappyGate. So it's it's kind of interesting that this is, it was a big crime. It happened during, very recently, as of 2013 to 2015. And then it was brought more to light in this story from the heist on Netflix, which I definitely recommend you guys go and find it and watch the last 2 episodes. And then now, hey, if you wanted to know what the original distillery was that had the Pappy Van Winkle, and you might get that answer right now. So I appreciate those who stayed on all this time. And yeah, also guys, let me know if you like this more shorter format of like 12 to 15 minutes, or if you do like the longer videos, kind of closer to 30, 40 to an hour. And yeah, let me know if those are videos you like. I mean, maybe we could do it when I do my Patreon accounts. And then that way, you know, we can just kind of do different things and see. For those who really enjoy more in-depth stories, or those who enjoy more of these shorter stories, yeah, please let me know in the comments. And as always, guys, please go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel, my Instagram, Facebook, and all the support is appreciated. The comments are appreciated, and please like and subscribe. And yeah, now to answer that question that I asked you guys earlier in the video, so hopefully all of you guys have stuck with me. The original distillery that Pappy Van Winkle was made at before it was bought by Buffalo Trace and Sazerac was the Stitzel-Weller Distillery, which now makes the Stitzel-Weller the Key rum, or sorry, not the Key, the Key Bourbon. It actually still uses his old logo of the 5 keys, which all stood for different things, which I did talk about in a previous video, so I recommend definitely going to check that out. But yeah, I appreciate you guys sticking with me, and hopefully you enjoyed this episode and the history of PappyGate. Definitely look forward to doing more videos like this, and always, guys, I love it when you send me some messages and comments, so that way it kind of gives me some ideas on what to talk about in the future. And I wish you guys all a great day and have a great weekend as well. We got July 4th coming up, so big celebrations as always. And drink responsibly, and have a great day. Thanks, guys. Bye.